This episode discusses a real criminal case and may contain disturbing content. All information presented in this video was obtained by publicly available sources. I do not claim to know the individuals involved, nor do I have any inside or private information beyond what has been made public. Any commentary shared is strictly my own personal observations and opinions. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's been nearly 4 years since the death of Kouri Richins. 4 years since a father was found unresponsive in his home. 4 years of questions, 4 years of speculation, and an investigation that took an entire year before anyone was placed in handcuffs. When the arrest finally came, it shocked the community. The headlines exploded because the grieving widow, the woman who had written a children's book about coping with loss, she was now being charged with causing it. Since then, this case has been nothing but quiet. Motions, evidence battles, financial questions, allegations that go far beyond what many of us first understood. And now on Monday, the next chapter begins. Welcome to True Crime Stories Beyond the Headlines. Tonight, we're breaking down the case of the state of Utah versus Kouri Richins so that we understand the full landscape before opening statements begin. April 6th of 2023. A mom of 3, a recent widow, goes on Good Thing Utah for an interview that she scheduled to promote her self-published book, Are You With Me? A book she says was written to help her kids cope with the sudden loss of their father.
And Kouri, I want to start with your story. What happened in your personal life?
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. So it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us. And he was 39. It completely took us all by shock. And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced.
On May 8th, 2023, Kouri Richins was arrested for the poisoning death of her husband, Kouri Richins. Investigators had determined that Kouri had a high level of fentanyl in his system. What began as a grieving widow's story of a sudden and tragic loss quickly shifted into a criminal investigation, one that would uncover financial strain, suspicious circumstances, and mounting questions about what really happened inside their home. The woman who had wrote the children's book about loss had now become the prime suspect. March 4th, 2022. Just after 3 a.m., Kouri would call 911. She had found her husband Eric cold to the touch, unresponsive, and not breathing. Emergency personnel was immediately dispatched to the home. Chaos and emotions are expected. But in this case, there were certain things that just did not add up. There were no immediate signs of violence, and the early assumption was that Eric had suffered a medical event during the night. Standard toxicology testing was done. That's typical for sudden death cases. And when the results came back, that changed the direction of this case entirely. It would reveal that Eric had approximately 5 times the lethal level of the substance in his system. Now, to understand how we got here, we have to go back a bit, because what was happening in the months prior, well, they would become a very big part of this investigation. Kouri and Eric had built what many on the outside would say was a perfect life. They were married in 2013 and shortly after welcomed their first son. And by the time 2022 would arrive, they would have 3 boys. Eric ran C&E Stone Masonry, LLC, with his partner. Kouri was a licensed real estate agent and had eventually began flipping properties for profit. According to court filings, before the success with their businesses, there was a different agreement. They had signed a prenuptial agreement. Documents would indicate that this would allow Eric to keep all of his assets in his estate in the event of a divorce. However, in the event of his death, his estate would go to Kouri to do as she sees fit, as long as they were legally married. While Eric's business appeared stable and successful, records would indicate that Kouri Richins Realty, the ventures with that real estate company that Kouri had, would involve high interest loans tied to property flips, loans that carried significant financial risk. According to the charging documents in late 2021, Kouri allegedly withdrew approximately $500,000 from a home equity line of credit tied to one of Eric's properties. Prosecutors claim that the funds were used as an earnest money deposit on a luxury home purchase. When Eric discovered the withdrawal, documents suggested that it created a significant conflict with Kouri. Now, she promised to pay the money back, but reports also indicate that after Eric confronted Kouri, he started taking steps to protect his financial interests. Prosecutors also suggest that communication records and witness statements point to Kouri having an affair in the months leading up to Eric's death. According to the charging documents, they also allege that Eric's death in March of 2022 was not the first time he had unknowingly ingested a substance. Court filings describe a prior incident in which Eric became severely ill after a meal prepared at home. Intense physical symptoms that were initially believed to be an allergic reaction. Investigators later alleged that the toxicology evidence suggested that a small amount of that same substance from the night of his death may have been in his system this prior time as well. According to the charging documents, investigators allege that in the weeks leading up to Eric's death, Kouri had contacted an acquaintance in an effort to obtain prescription pain medications. Prosecutors claim that the text messages recovered during the investigation would show a request for something stronger than what was previously provided. Filings further allege that a transaction actually took place shortly before Eric's death, and that the substance later identified from the toxicology reports was connected to this exchange. On the night of his death, Kouri claims that they were having a drink, that they were celebrating something. She implied that they were celebrating the close of a mansion she wanted to buy, a $2 million mansion. It's further indicated in documents that that's not the case at all. Eric was not happy about this purchase, didn't want it to go through. And from different sources, they say he was going to tell her that. Now, you'll find out later that the next day after his death, she closed on that said property and had a party. Now, authorities argue that the digital evidence, including phone records, financial transactions, they all helped establish a timeline of events in the days leading up to March 4th. With the financial records, phone data, and toxicology findings in hand, the investigators moved forward. And on May 8th, Kouri Richins was arrested and charged in the connection to Eric's death. Kouri was originally charged with aggravated murder and attempted aggravated murder with drug distribution charges. Prosecutors also brought forth financial charges, financial crime charges related to the alleged schemes involving mortgage fraud, money laundering, things of that nature. Now, in late 2025, prosecutors filed an amended charges, removing the drug distribution counts, but adding insurance fraud, forgery counts in connection with the broader alleged financial crimes. Now, Richins has pleaded not guilty to all counts. But if you thought that was all, that's not even the case. Because this one has had so much drama, you would not believe. So we're going to get into some digital footprints, some Google searches, the email that she sent to law enforcement before she was ever actually arrested, in which she used laughing emojis and LOL like too many times. We're going to get into some family insights, and we're also going to take a look at the walk the dog letter that has blew up all over the internet. Now, on March 4th, she calls 911. Okay? Kouri told sheriff's deputy that her and her husband were having a drink to celebrate the night. She said that Eric had consumed a shot of alcohol and a THC gummy. Well, she had made him a Moscow Mule cocktail and allegedly laced it with this substance. Kouri said that she went to bed in one of their kids' room because one of the boys had had a nightmare. She left her phone in the room with Eric. She later rejoined Eric at around 3 a.m. When she felt that he was cold to the touch and was not breathing, she says that she tried to perform CPR. Now, evidence says that that's unlikely since there was blood coming out of his mouth, that she then called 911. Now, you're going to see later that in the body cam transcripts, she tells them that she did CPR because that's what the lady on the phone told her to do. So, the math ain't mathin'. Eric's family members told investigators quickly after his death that they had suspected Kouri. According to the warrants, Kouri himself warned them that if anything had happened to him, she was to blame. When responders asked Kouri where Eric's medication was, she claimed she didn't know. And warrants state she said the maid just puts medication in random places. She also claimed that her husband had a pill addiction in high school, but had no problems since then. But the family says they have no idea what she's referring to. There was never any drug problem. Now, there was some suspicious circumstances. One of Eric's sisters told investigators that a few years prior, Eric had called her from the family's vacation in Greece. Eric told her that Kouri had given him a drink and he had become violently ill. She alleged that Eric believed Kouri had tried to kill him. Now, Eric holds a joint life insurance policy with his partner from C&E Stone Masonry. Basically, Eric has a life insurance policy on his partner has one on Eric. That way, if something happens to either one of them, the company is covered. A warrant states that Kouri allegedly logged in to these accounts from the business, and she removed the men as beneficiaries and named herself as the policy's only beneficiary. And when the insurance company notified the men, they were able to change it back. Court filings also say that on Valentine's Day in 2022, Eric suffered an allergic reaction from a dinner that she had made him. He had passed out, had to use an EpiPen, and after he woke up, he told all of this to his business partner, and he told him his concerns. Court filings say that Kouri had purchased $900 worth of this substance from an acquaintance a few days before the Valentine's Day dinner. 2 weeks later, she would ask for $900 more, but stronger. And then shortly after that, Eric died of what was suspected of an overdose. Now, before his death, Eric had changed the beneficiary of his will and his power of attorney, replacing Kouri with his sister. And warrants state that he did not tell Kouri about this change because he wanted his 3 boys to be taken care of financially, and because he was worried that Kouri would unalive him for the murder. Warrants also state that he was planning on filing for a divorce himself, but he died before the process could ever begin. Day after Eric's death, Kouri learned that she had been cut out of the will. Now, it's unclear if this was during the party she had for the celebration of the opening or if this was during some other event. And there's been different reports if it was actually the day after or a couple day after. So, within a week. But Eric and Kouri had disagreed on a $2 million home that Kouri wanted to purchase in Flint, but Eric thought it was too expensive. And family members said that Eric planned to tell Kouri that they weren't buying the home. But Kouri told the investigators that it was that very home they were celebrating purchasing the night he died. And the next day, after Eric's death, Kouri closed on the home and had a large party to celebrate, where she was reported to be drinking and celebrating. The warrant goes on to say that Kouri actually assaulted Eric's sister who showed up at their home. Now, if you go listen to the hearing, you'll see her give her impact statement and she lays all of that out for you. But up until that point, Kouri had no idea that Eric had cut her out. She didn't know he replaced her with his sister, and his sister, who was now in charge of the estate and the home. March 28th, a few weeks after Eric's death, Kouri sued his sister for control over the estate, and she cited the prenuptial agreement. And if you remember, as long as they're married, if he dies, she gets everything. Eric's sister's response, it's reported that, I don't know everything that was in it, but it's been reported that she mentioned the pending homicide case. It remains to be seen how the criminal case will affect the civil case. And Utah has a slayer statute, and it basically prevents you from profiting from your crimes. So, like, if she can't make any money. March 7th, almost a year after Eric's death, Kouri published the book, Are You With Me? And she reached out to set up the interview herself. And she said it was inspired by her own kids' questions after Eric died. And she even dedicated the book to Eric. And she said she planned to release sequels. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. Okay, so on June 12th of 2023, they had a bond hearing to see if she was going to get out and all that. It was more like a detention hearing because this thing lasted like almost 4 hours. But detectives testified, recounting their steps in the investigation. They had witnesses testify about their involvement in the investigation. They explained digital records, documents, tax returns, all of the financial aspects. And Amy Richins, Kouri Richins' sister, read her victim impact statement. You need to find that and watch that. I know Court TV has it. There's a bunch of other places that have it. The defense argued that there was no substantial evidence and asked that Richins be released while she's waiting on trial. Prosecutors described incriminating Google searches. We're going to go over those. And after all of that, bail was denied. Okay. So some of her Google searches. Let me pick. Okay. Let's see. Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? Luxury prisons for rich in America. Death certificate says pending. Will life insurance still pay? If someone is poisoned, what does it go down as the death certificate as? How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely. Now, this one was done after the police had her phone. Okay, So let's see. She searched up the Utah State Prison. What happens to deleted messages? 5 things you need to know about Utah State Prison. Understanding the risk of substance overdose, how one pill can unalive. How to hire someone to write a book for you. How does the FBI work a case? What are the signs of being under federal investigation? Circle R Ranch. I, I don't know. Okay, it's also been reported that within 48 hours of his death, Kouri tried to have him cremated. She had 4 separate life insurance claims out on Eric that totaled like $1.9 million. This is besides everything in his estate. And as of March 1st of 2022, Kouri owed approximately, this is according to court filings and documents, she owed approximately $189,840 in taxes. That's just the taxes. This is March 1st of 2022. And then she allegedly owed a lender over $1.8 million. And it's alleged that she had talked to tax authorities on the day before Eric died. So she was financially hurting badly. Okay. So after a round of questions from the police, evidently they had been questioning her back and forth, she wrote a crazy email to the police. Like, evidently he had asked a question, she responded to it, and then responded again. It's crazy. So I'm gonna get that, and we're gonna go over that. But I mean, it's crazy. And then there's the walk the dog letter. The letter she sent from jail to her mom, for her mom and her brother. And that had all kinds of stuff behind it. And then there's been all the jail calls from her to her brother. It's just been, it has been crazy. So where are we at? We're at about 30 minutes. So we're not going to have time to go over the letter and the email. But on the next episode, we'll go over the walk the dog letter and the emails, and then I'll pop up some of the Google searches so y'all can see them. And then also the transcript from the body cam from the morning of March 4th. We'll pull up some of that so that you can see some of what was actually said. So next time we'll get into all of that. So make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. These episodes like this will be a little bit different than our normal crime stories episodes. And what I'm going to try to do is I'll hopefully get all of this out. What I promised you, like the walk the dog letter, the email, the body cam transcript, and some of the Google searches. I'll try to get those up for y'all before Monday's opening statements. I don't think the court has court on Friday. I think that they will be Monday through Thursday, unless something happens now, because it was scheduled like that in Brandon Banfield's trial, and we ended up having court on Friday a few times because of like snow and other things that happened. But I think court's just going to be Monday through Thursday. So what I'll do is I cannot do it every night, guys, because my house is crazy. But what I'll try to do is I'll try to release a video every Friday night. Gives you a recap of the week. And then maybe if we have times on the weekend, I can go back through and we can take a closer look at some of the things that happened during the trial. But I'm really excited for this one. Been waiting on it for a long time. But on Monday, it all starts. It's all going to come together. All right, I think that was it. I was trying to make sure I didn't miss anything that we could go over tonight. But anyway, so that's it for now. Until next time, court is adjourned.